So it will be a short class, and I'll be going through the promise little bit, some more points, important points. So just to tell you what we can do with the promise, and then we'll continue tomorrow. So this is a short class today. So, okay. Can you see my screen? Let's create one more file, e06.js. So generally, when we have the promise, we create or to create a promise, we write down like this: constant p1 equal to new promise, and then we have arrow function inside it. We have resolve and reject, and when everything goes right, I will go with resolve, and if there is some error, then we go with the reject. We can put this promise part in a function also, like function get data, and I will put the promise inside the function also. I return this promise. And when I take this get data, so for example, I take this get data p1 equal to get data, I can use that p1 dot then. Okay, I can write down that statement, or I can call the catch also. Catch will catch all the errors. Console.log error is error. Or when we have the good condition, we put good condition in the arrow function like this, and we can use that one also. So now, instead of assigning p1 to get data, I can also directly use get data here instead of assigning it to p1. So it's up to me. If I want to create a variable, I can create a variable, or I can directly use this function and call dot then directly. So one thing to remember, let's say I have another function, get data 2. Let's say this function does not return promise. This function does not return promise. This function is something kind of doing some work. Console.log, we are in data get data 2. So when this function does not return promise, then we cannot use dot then. Okay, dot then can only be used if this function is returning kind of promise. If this function does not return promise, then we cannot use dot then, or we cannot use await. You remember we did async await also. So await also will not work on get data 2. Let's say I can say get data 2. So this does not have any meaning because we are not returning any promise. So await will just run it as a normal function. It will not work. It will not give me any advantage. So if I want advantage of async await or dot then we should have a promise for it. If we don't have promise, then dot then or await, async await will not work properly. It will not behave as expected, and things will not go properly. So we have to make sure that it is returning promise. So generally, when we have this, generally here what we do here, we put set timeout in our example. we put set timeout in all our example, but in real world, we will not use set timeout. We will be using real API. So what is the real API? So there is a fetch function for the API, and we pass some URL. And this fetch is nothing but it automatically returns a promise. It has internally there is a promise. So whenever I'm using fetch, I will call it then, and this then has some response, and this response which we get from the fetch, this response has kind of JSON function which we get it in the response. So we return this JSON function. Since we return this JSON function is also a promise. Since this is also a promise, I can use another .then to get the real result of the API. So so what I did, I call the fetch with some URL. Then I get a response, because this fetch is nothing but a promise. Internally, it has a promise. And the response which we get has a function called JSON. And this JSON is also having another promise inside it. That's why when we return res.json, we can again chain it with .then, and here I will get the result. So this result is the real result of the API. Result is result. So let me comment all about, let's talk about this fetch part. So let me show you one URL, how it works. I will put some URL. Let me have some mock URL. So I will show you, this is the URL. I put some URL. This is a dummy JSON file. I call this URL, and when this fetch of this URL happens, this fetch is the default functionality to access the API from the server. When I call this fetch of the URL, it will return me the response. This response is a JSON, and since it also returns me the promise, I can append it with another then. I can chain it with another then. If this is not a promise, then I cannot append it with the then. I am able to append it with then because this response.json is a new promise, and we append it with this one. So let's see how it looks in the real world. I will do console.log of URL. Then I will also do console.log of response which we get, and then ultimately which we get with this result. Let's first see what happens when we run this one. So here you see I get some JSON response. So when I run this, so you will see initially I'm consoling URL, then we got this response. This response is this response. It has the JSON. You cannot see it here because it has a lot of things. All are not displayed here. It has a JSON kind of function, which is also a promise, and ultimately it gives me this result here, which is this result. So if I want to access any API, I will start with the fetch, then I will go with the response and return the response.json. And since this response.json is also a promise, I can append it with the then, and we are able to go to the get result from this API. Is this page part clear? How to access the API? So how to access the JSON from the API? So we are getting this result here. If I I don't need console to put here because this is the middle step, which does not give me anything. This does not help me with anything. So right now I will run. I'm only getting the result, which is useful for me. This result is useful for me, and I can use this result in my React or in my Next.js project or Angular project or Vue project. I can use it. Now another thing, I can also put all this stuff. I can also put all this stuff in the my promise. So I have this promise with the get data, and I fetch the URL, and I get this response, and I get this result. Whenever I get the result, I can resolve with this proper result. And I can also append the catch block where I can show error, and here I will reject with the error. So what we were doing, I'm trying to fetch. Once I get the result, proper result, I resolve with the resolve with the result, and once I get error, it will go into the catch block and I reject with error. So though fetch is a promise, but I can use this fetch part inside my promise, and I can use this, inside my promise, and I can use it with the resolve and reject. So it's not only that fetch is the promise we can use directly fetch, but we can put it inside this promise, and we can use it in this promise. Why we will put in my promise? Because let's say I have another function also, get data 2. Let's say I have also another function, get data 2, with different URL, for example, and it will also resolve and reject with some result or error. And then I can use the constant P1 equal to get data, and I can use P2 to get another data 2, and then I can use promise.all, that is when everything is resolved. I want to use it in my promise.all. And here I'll get the response. Let's see what response now I'll get. So what I did, I created one function with one URL, second function with different URL, and both get resolved or rejected at the appropriate time. And I call promise.all to get the data from this URL also and from this URL also. So in many applications, you need to show to the user when all API are resolved. So that's why we can do in this way. Let me run it again. So now you will see, first I'm getting URL 1, then I'm getting URL 2, I'm getting response, result, I'm getting this result. Result is nothing but the array of P1, this is from the P1, and P2, this is from the P2. Then I can manipulate this result as I want in my application. Is that clear what I am trying to do here? Any questions or doubt on this one? So first thing is you must remember this fetch part. This is very important. Whenever you want to fetch any API, then you have to remember what is this fetch one, and then we can put it in our promise also. That is what you have to remember. Now let's talk about, let's say if I have function get data 3, for example, And here I will return some new promise. And this promise is resolve or reject. And here I will use set timeout. Let's say if I'm passing some ID and also I'm passing time. So whatever time I pass, I will use it in the set timeout. So I can define how many seconds it should take from my parameters. And once this is resolved, I will say resolve with some ID. Okay, ID. Whatever ID I pass, I resolve with that ID. And I can say ID is ID. Okay, so I just resolved it with the ID. Now, if I want this get data tree to be called parallelly, that means it should run individually. I can call one get data tree, then another one. So first one is not dependent on the second one. Second one will run itself. First one will run itself. When the result will come, we get resolved and we can somehow use it in P1 or P2 wherever we want. P2 is good. Let's do this one. Okay, so let's run this one. Okay, P1 is already declared. Let's start with the P3 and P4. So I'm getting ID 1 after 2 seconds and I'm getting ID 2 after 3 seconds. So both are running parallelly, and once we get this one, it automatically shows the result, and when this one comes, it will show its result at its own time. But if I want this P4 to run after P3 is done, then I can run it by like this P3.then. So that means P3 is done, and then I will run P4. So in this case, what will happen? When P3 will be done, then I will go with the P4. And this will be sequential. Sequential means after P3 is done, then we will touch the P4. So let's run again. So 1 is done, ID 1 is done, and then ID 2 is done. Now it will take 2 seconds plus 3 seconds, total 5 seconds it will take. Whereas previously, when we were doing parallelly, then it was taking 2 seconds for this, 3 seconds for this. So it was taking only 3 seconds because this one was doing parallelly. Both were doing simultaneously. And in the second case, it is done after the first is done. So here 2 seconds is done and then 3 seconds is done. So it goes after 1 by 1. So when this is completed, then it will start this one. So this is what for today I want you to remember, this fetch part, which is very important, how to fetch any URL thing from any URL. Another thing you have to remember is if we have to do sequentially, we use this method. And if we want to do parallelly, simultaneously, then we don't need that. We can do together. After this, we can write down this one. So this one will be simultaneously going both together, but this one will be sequentially going together. So only this one is there, and a lot of interview they ask all these concepts which we went through all about all this one. So you should go through all the exercises again. I will put this in one of the files and give you what we did today. 1 second, let me put it in one of the promises, conclusion. JavaScript promises. I'll publish it and then I'll give you the URL. let me run this one. This is promises conclusion. For today is a conclusion one. So whatever I showed you is here in this one. Let me share in the chat also. Okay, so you can go through it. So today will be the small because I have to go somewhere. So let me, today is a small session, but let's talk about what we will do tomorrow. And so you can prepare it before you come here. So let me show you what we will be doing tomorrow. Let's put tomorrow's date. So promises is done. From tomorrow we'll start with a new topic. In few days I will ask you to install the React and Next.js. Let me, let me work on that part. What I have to teach on that one. So I'm waiting for that part. So tomorrow what you have to do? We'll start with the search part. So in the search, we have linear search, and then we have binary search, and third is the search of substring. Substring means, let's say, if there is a word hello world, and I want to search the text ELL. So how to write a code for that one. So these three things we'll do. So this time I will not tell you how the linear search works. I will ask you how will you write. We will first discuss what is the logic which we have to write for linear search, and then I will ask you to write the code. So before I explain my way of writing it, I want you to write it. So based on the logic which we will discuss tomorrow, you have to write here yourself with your thinking. Don't try to Google it, because I want you to think at that time. If you Google it first, then it will be very easy for you to work on that one. I want you to think on it. Based on the logic which we will write, you have to think how to write the code for it. Similarly with the binary search, I want you to think on it, means how you will write the binary search. We will discuss the logic, and then you have to think. And after thinking, you have to write it. Whether it's wrong, it's okay. But you have to try the wrong way or right way. What if you know the right way, it's fine. Then we will go with this third one. First, we will discuss the logic, and then you have to write the code based on the logic which we have discussed. So it may be, your solution may be wrong or it may be right. That doesn't matter. You have to try. That's what we will be doing tomorrow. Okay, so this is the part we will be doing. Be, taking one take, finish it, like in 3-4 days we finish the promises. Search will take tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow, if it is, everyone is comfortable, we can finish tomorrow only. But if you're not comfortable, it may take 2 days or 3 days, depending on your comfort level. We'll finish it. And once we are done with the search, I will take another topic. So like that, we will go very fast. In 1 or 2 months, we'll be completing everything which is needed for interview in the JavaScript or front end. So try to not to miss any class, because I will be taking class every day, and every day we will do something interesting which is important for the interview. Okay, so any questions for today? Okay, no questions. So just read the promises again, revise it, because it is very important topic. In many people take the, in interview they ask promises, and whatever we discuss, the solutions is among them only. So just revise it, and we'll tomorrow start with the search part. And by end of this week, we will start with the React and Next.js. First, I'll finish few important topics, and then we'll move to the React.js and Next.js. Okay, that's all for today.